Five Nights at Freddy's, the indie phenomenon that popped up out of nowhere in 2014, it persists today as a multi-million-dollar franchise. Well known for its recognizable characters and unique, easy-to-understand gameplay, there is much to love about the series. From humble beginnings, a month after the first game was released, a sequel was announced. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. Five Nights at Freddy's is commonly understood to have a complex plot. However, what started that can largely be attributed to this game. This game had all sorts of things to look at, a lot of which we'll get into, but the point of this video is to go over something very specific. The point of this video is to get across something that I feel has gone largely glanced over in the greater scope of the plot. So let's get started! Five Nights at Freddy's 2, its main talking point with its story when it came out, was how secretly the game was a prequel to the first game the entire time. This was something set up by the trailers, the entire game's presentation. It's the big reveal at the heart of the game. This much is made very obvious by the end screen you get once you beat the bonus 6th night of the game. On the screen, we get to see both that the game takes place in 1987, a date which was referred to as being in the past in the first game, and that the original characters are being planned to be reused at some point in the future. All this makes it very clear that this game takes place before the first one, something which came as a shock to everyone playing it.
It is a prequel! Oh my god!
It's a big reveal, and a reward you get for completing the hardest challenge the main game has to offer you. But when you beat it, you gain access to Custom Night, a special mode which lets you curate your own experience with the game. Because it's a special mode, it doesn't have as much to offer in terms of story. That is, at first glance. When you beat Custom Night, you get this screen. It turns out, in Custom Night, you're not playing as the same person you were in nights 1 through 6. This is something interesting by itself, but there's actually another important thing going on in the screen. Fritz Smith, despite being the second character you play as in Five Nights 2, is listed as the third employee to be in your position. Weird, right? We know from the newspaper here that the building was only open a few short weeks, but why is it necessary for there to be someone in that position as a night guard before the main gameplay? I mean, does the game talk about a night guard working there before you? At all? Yes, in fact. It talks about them in the tutorial phone calls you get. In the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, the phone calls didn't really give much plot. The guy who was talking to you died. That lines up with Five Nights 2 taking place before that game, but that's only something important retroactively. Here in Five Nights 2, there's actually a lot more story to uncover in these recordings. Together, let's filter through all the information gone over in the phone calls and separate what's there to teach you about the game, what's there for flavor, and what's there for story reasons. On the first night, we get a phone call meant to play on how people, at this point, still think this game takes place after the first one. Very quickly, we learn about the first night guard who worked there before you. He actually complained about the robots trying to get into his office, and is the reason you have a music box to defend yourself, as well as a Freddy Fazbear head. Though, it also says that this night guard who worked there before you was moved to the day shift instead. He's now a day guard for the building, despite nearly being killed by the characters. On the second night, you get introduced to all the withered animatronics, and a reminder about the music box. That's all to talk about there. On the third night, you get introduced to the special character in the new version of Freddy's gang, the Mangle. Since the game's taught you all the mechanics at this point, it now has time to give you backstory on its characters and world. This is why the Mangle is talked about here. But there's a little more to the phone call here. The guy on the phone, he feels the need to talk about rumors circulating the location. That's worrying by itself, but he assures us it's fine. The day guard, the one who was the night guard before you, reports that nothing unusual is happening. On the fourth night, there's no new characters to introduce, so what we're left with is more talk about these... well, it seems like there's some credence to those rumors the guy on the phone mentioned, huh? There's an investigation going on. Someone has tampered with the animatronics. He says that this will all get sorted out in a few days, but that doesn't seem likely, now does it? On the 5th night, everything comes to a head. The building's now in lockdown. Access to the area isn't allowed to the public, and nobody is let in or out. They're going to try and get in contact with the original restaurant's owner. Things seem pretty bad, and they've even roped you into it a little bit. Yeah, you might have to get moved to the day shift once this is all over. Yeah, as a day guard. Apparently a position just became available. Let's listen to how the guy on the phone talks about it, since that might be nice. You wouldn't have to deal with Freddy's gang by yourself.
No one is allowed in or out, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move into the day shift, but the position just became available. We don't have a replacement for your shift yet, but we're working on it.
I don't like how he says previous employees. The focus on how the day guard position just became available doesn't really bode well either. Anyway, even though there's not much that's relevant to go over for this video, let's go over what happens on the 6th night as well. It opens in a really scary way. He doesn't know why you're even working that night. The place gets closed down. Someone used one of the suits in the back, and now Freddy and all the rest aren't acting right. Thankfully, while there's still a day left to work before the place completely ceases operation, you'll be on the day shift that day. Or, well, Jeremy will be. For us, we also get to know that Phone Guy is going to take the night guard position when the place opens up again, something we hear about in the first Five Nights game, and so again, everything connects there. So, did anything stand out while we were going over it? Well, hold that thought for me, if you please. Right now, let's go over what the first Five Nights game's plot was, so we can better talk about how the sequel expands on the story with what we've talked about so far. If you're unfamiliar, what set Five Nights at Freddy's apart from the rest on release was its choice to hide deeper layers of the story through hidden messages, which oftentimes would be naturally impossible to fully grasp while playing the game by yourself. As a result, encouraging people to spread around their own thoughts and unique circumstances. The plot of the first Five Nights at Freddy's game is simple, largely due to the fact it's made to be self-contained. Because of that, the basic plot only amounts to what your job is, that you're hired to work a night shift at a mascot restaurant, and the characters start attacking you as things get worse around you as the nights continue. What made it revolutionary, however, was these. Occasionally, these newspaper clippings would replace a specific paper hung up on the wall. From these newspapers, we learn a dark secret about the game. So far, all we've been able to discern is that these characters are just attacking you due to technical malfunctions. But in full actuality, what we learn from this is that there's something else going on. Kids, 5 of them, went missing, however long ago. And their bodies, they're inside of the old machines. Reanimated. They possess them, killing anybody they can get their hands on at night. It's a lot, and it adds another layer to how horrifying the entire experience is. Something only mentioned in one of these writings is how the kids themselves actually went missing. Someone lured the kids into a back room during the late hours of the day. And all this is something not required for you to see. All of these messages only randomly appear. It's fascinating because of how hidden it is, how this information that completely changes the way you look at the game, most people won't ever get to see. Five Nights at Freddy's made its name this way. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 does something even crazier. Every time you die in Five Nights 2, there's a chance something special will happen. You can end up doing this. You're given control of what appears to be an old Atari game, themed around the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza franchise. There are 4 different games to play, all with their own special relevance. Let's go over some of them now, but only so much as to help me get the point of this video across. There's a pattern here. The game starts, you're doing something very simple and nice, when he's the one who killed them. He appears in 3 out of 4 of these games. In the last appearance is the most important one to what I want to talk to you about. It's this. You're given control of the old version of Freddy in the Five Nights 2 building. There are a lot of things of note here, but I just want to focus on that guy, the killer, how he shows up. He looks a little different here. He's taller than us. He's shaped very weirdly, but there's something else on him. This thing. On his chest, there's this vaguely golden colored thing. It's not drawn with very much complexity, but there's not many things it could be. It's a badge. That implies he works there. Yes, that is how the person responsible was able to lure the kids into a back room. I hadn't mentioned it earlier, but it's also said in those earlier newspaper clips we went over that police are under the impression the killer dressed as one of the company's mascots in order to gain the children's trust. This is how he was able to get his hands on something like that. He worked there. But what job did he have? Yes. What we've been going over, it's all for this purpose. To hone in on this one detail, this one small thing that brings the game together completely. The killer, he was a night guard that worked there before you. He knew that the animatronics tried to get into your office at night, but didn't do anything more about it. He intentionally reported that nothing strange went on during the day, even though, as we learn, everything goes downhill fast there. This is why the company is expressing caution considering previous employees. This is why the position of day guard becomes mysteriously available. It was all him. He is responsible for everything going wrong. Again. This guy that's purple. He was there. He was there. He was the first night guard. The one before you. Alright, so now that that's all said and done, let me explain to you some things about why this video was made. There's this other channel on YouTube you're probably aware of if you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's called Game Theory. Game Theory's videos covering Five Nights are very, very popular, and back when Five Nights at Freddy's 2 was new, they released a video which, in some ways, this video is responding to. The video I'm referring to is well known for many reasons, but this is one I want to focus on. Creator of Five Nights at Freddy's, Scott Cawthon, has said before on Steam that this video in particular was incredible, as they, quote, got almost everything right. It was later clarified what the almost everything referred to, in a thread where someone questioned a specific takeaway at the end of Game Theory's video, that being that the person talking to you on the phone was also the killer. Scott came into the thread stressing again that they got almost everything right. This clarified that the person on the phone wasn't the killer. So with that in mind, this video. This video exists to be sort of a tribute to game theory, while also clarifying something about one of their most iconic videos in the series. While it's gone over in this video that the night guard before you was in fact the killer, I wanted to make something that properly presents how deep of a revelation that is. And while it's a bit off topic, to briefly speak on the later games in the Five Nights series, what we've gone over in this video, I believe, is very important to understanding the wider story for people who've not only enjoyed the series for a long time, but also for new fans. So, my apologies if you feel like you already knew about this and feel like I wasted your time. This video is my way of completing Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in some ways. Well, there's also something else. That Steam post we were talking about before, the one before the thread, the one that was written by the creator, it talks about Five Nights at Freddy's 4. It's kind of an infamous post. The creator laments that when Five Nights at Freddy's 4 came out, nobody could solve it. Nobody could find all the pieces and put them all together. He mentions how this wasn't the case for the first 3 games, and that he very much so expected people to dissect Five Nights at Freddy's 4 in the same way. You probably know about it, but there's this thing you see when you beat the game's Nightmare mode. It's this locked box, and here in the Steam post, the creator talked about it. He expected to open it, show it to people, when everybody solved Five Nights 4, like the previous games. But that never happened. The creator, seeing people unable to solve it, chose to leave it that way. He calls it something special, and a fitting conclusion, but, well, next time I make a Five Nights at Freddy's video, let's just say I'm going to complete Five Nights 4 as well. And yes, that includes telling you what is in the box. Remember to smile. You are the face of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.